don't know if maybe it's just me or if you might agree or anyone. Do you find the Olympics interesting or do you find them a tad boring?
Not a tad boring, a lot boring.
Okay, thank you.
Boring.
Because I'm like, look, some aspects of it are very interesting. There are really cool people involved. There are really neat things. I'm pretty sure Simone Biles is superhuman. I think she defies gravity. I even saw a few swimming races that were pretty amazing. There are really neat aspects to it. But in general, overall, I feel like we've had kind of the same old every time we have an Olympic Games. I don't know. I'd love to see something new, something more interesting, which I guess is kind of an issue in and of itself if you think about it in ways other than just the Olympic Games. It's almost like we get so used to a certain level that things that used to be amazing and used to be like, you'd be awestruck are now like, meh, because you're used to it. You need more of a fix. You need something more incredible, more dangerous, more appealing. And so I'm wondering if maybe that's where I am with these Olympic Games.
All right. My thoughts are it's the same thing that happened in the information age, right? Mm-hmm. And so before, when you watch Olympic coverage, you'd watch like just a couple events because there wasn't 19 different networks streaming it 24 hours a day, right?
Yeah.
And just like in racing, they have practices and qualifiers. And if you're like really into that sport, then you want to watch all of it. Regular people have the attention spans of a flea.
Yeah.
And so let's not watch qualifiers that don't mean anything. Give me like the main event, right? And that's all. And they last too long and there's too many of them. It's not curated for how we consume things now. And historically, the Olympics were the warriors that everybody sent their best warriors to show just how awesome they were at, doing what they did. And then we kind of diluted it and created crazy games and really didn't show, some of them don't even show like strength. They're just kind of weird. And so there's just too much of them, right? And if there was just gymnastics and it was just all gymnastics and then we didn't move on from gymnastics, that would be a different story because you could get bought in. But if you're switching from one to the other, it's just too much.
Yeah.
It's just too much.
Do you think maybe that is why there is so much controversy this year? Like, so many things are upsetting people or offending people. People are fighting on social media. Everything from like the opening ceremonies to this boxing match that, recently became headlines, all kinds of things. I'm now starting to wonder, like, is this because we need something more?
Yes,
like,
we are freaking bored.
Yes.
Freaking bored.
Yes, like you see somebody just like blow away the competitors in an event. And you're like, oh, that's super cool. And that's it. That's it. Then you move on. So at least the controversy sticks around and gets people talking and Googling and looking into things. And it's like, I wonder if we were to create a new Olympic event, what would you create? What would you maybe not even like a physical show, maybe like a mental show. Like things that people can do with their brain that's absolutely incredible. Or
we're conditioned with movies and video games and whatever that you get these things should get a lot closer to dying, right? We watch for the guy not to cross the Grand Canyon. We're watching to see if he falls in the Grand Canyon. And so I think these are a little too boring because they're not close enough to death. I'm telling you, at one time these Olympics would have been awesome because they would have been special, and but now. Just not the case.
We're just too over it, and things that we see today, even back then, would have been amazing. But because now we're so jaded by things, now it's like, really?
All right, so swimming, right? I'm going to improve the games. You ready?
Okay.
In swimming, it's going to still be 1,000-meter race.
Yeah.
But we're going to put a shark in the pool.
I was just going to say, or piranha. Or something.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if you qualify well in fencing, right, you get a sharp sword and your opponent, no barrier.
Yes.
So we might get a stabbing, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then the pistol, like we're not shooting at a target. We're shooting at each other.
Put like an apple on your head.
That's it. At least it doesn't have to be for sure death, but it could get a little closer to death.
Make it a little more interesting.
Yeah. It got to involve lava, right? We got to have sharp objects. I mean, there's just not enough danger in the Olympics right now.
Yes, like diving. How deep do you have to make that?
Or make the pools super small.
Yes, like when they would dive into like a little thing, like at the circus.
Yes.
Yes. Now we're talking.
Yeah.
This is going to be ratings gold.
If our Olympics are more interesting, we would hit way better ratings
Extreme Olympics.
Extreme Olympics.
Yep. Let's make that happen.
Okay. We're good?
We're good. That's all I needed.
Okay. Let's talk about fake stuff. All right.
Okay.
Today, this morning, market crashed, stocks. You saw and read all about that, right?
I haven't actually. You might
let me bring you up to speed. So what's supposed to happen in the stock market in the regular economy is you're supposed to have growth, right? Mm-hmm. Companies grow, they expand, they add more revenue, they add more value. People buy stocks. That's the way the things are supposed to happen. And every once in a while, you're supposed to get these corrections where, part of the value gets cut out so it could then grow again. It's almost like pruning a tree, right? And people don't like losing money. So what they do is they create this fake environment where we prop up companies so that they don't lose money and they don't get a correction. So I'll put this example, totally creating a metaphor for explanation. So let's just say you lived by a volcano, okay? And the volcano would kill your entire village if it ever major erupted. But somebody said, let's come around and do a mini eruption every year to relieve some of the pressure so we can kick the major eruption down the road. So the mini one would be painful, right? But you wouldn't have catastrophe.
Yeah.
But all you'd have to do is serve the consequences of having these mini eruptions. Would you do it? Everybody in the world would say yes.
Yeah, if you're avoiding catastrophe. Yeah.
Right. So that's a smart play. So if you don't let the economy correct itself and you put fake money into it to pretend like it's not there, the natural laws and rules will always take effect. And so either you have mini earthquakes or you have one big earthquake, and you get to choose. And it happens in the natural economy as well. So when our government is brain dead as it is, they create all these little bubbles to stave off those corrections and things from naturally occurring. And what ends up happening, you get the major explosion. So this was a little warning in our stock market that we're printing money, we're giving it away, we're creating these special deals, we're artificially inflating things, creating these bubbles, and then what happens? Major catastrophe of those bubbles bursting.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's a lot of fake things, and that's what most of my fears in our civilization come from fake things. Okay, money's fake, right? It's just maybe at one time money meant something, but now it's just this construct, right?
Yeah.
And not in a conspiratorial way.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything. And one of the examples of when Saddam Hussein fell and there was in Iraq all of the warring, there was money floating around in the street and nobody would even pick it up because you couldn't do anything with it. You couldn't spend. So the paper, one day you looked at the money and the money could buy things and it would be like you wouldn't let money go along. But in the streets when it's rolling around, they're like, not even worth picking up. These it changes your perspective on how valueless it could be and what it would take to make it so it wouldn't even be worth your effort.
Wow. I do think when you talk about people doing things to affect it, you mean like, did this happen with GameStop a couple years ago? Or some people, if they see something going in one direction, they can kind of rally and make everybody affect the change in it.
Yeah, it's an illusion where you have retail investors who buy individual stocks and put a portfolio together, and you have institutional investors. Well, the retail investors always lose. Like they're the first, they don't have the same information. They don't have the same buying and selling power that whatever. They're along for the ride. And so GameStop was awesome and interesting. Okay, so what they did was retail investors just inflated a stock and then deflated a stock to show that they had the power, that the same power the institutional investors have, right? So an institutional investor can actually crash a stock or make it swell big time. Retail investors just don't have the amount. But if they get together, they can show that they have a force that's equal to what the institutional investors have.
Huh. Okay. So there was a big crash this morning?
It went, and I don't know whether or not it was, jobs numbers. Everything's so fake, it's hard to tell what's real and what's not. So if you get Middle Eastern worries where there's a threat of war, or you get, the value of the dollar, so many things can come into play that they're actually measurable things and should affect the economy. But if it's propped up on so much fake stuff, then you don't know really what to believe. So we'll find out if it's a real thing. Then it'll hit our 10% correction like it's supposed to. Let it get through our system. Let a new batch of buyers, bring it back up to value again. But if somebody steps in, like if the Fed steps in and creates some fake interest rates, cuts and spur growth that's really not there, like all this fake stuff is ruining the mathematics that guides everything.
Yeah. Is this? Stop me if this is getting way off the point.
No, do it. I love these.
I've never fully understood things like Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Or there's another term, not Bitcoin, but I think it's similar.
Ethereum?
Maybe that's it.
Okay.
So is this not just things? It's not like paper money, but it's just a thing that people can affect the value of and then use it as though it's valuable like money?
There's similarities between regular currency and cryptocurrency. And
cryptocurrency is the word I was looking for.
So Bitcoin is a type of
crypto. Okay, yeah.
And so there was some very important things that were solved by crypto. But the closest analogy would be to compare it against money, and money it is not. Money. So having it as a spendable currency, it's not very good at that. It's not the problem that it was intending, to solve. And at one point in the future, we're going to be really happy that they served the time and created this thing because it needed to be. It needed to have 10 years of track record to find out if it's a vehicle that can be used somewhere in the future. And so really, we don't trust our governments. We don't trust financial institutions, and we shouldn't. I watched this battle go down with, and I think this was actually a millennial that came to this conclusion, but it might have been one generation after that, where they finally purchased and paid off their house. And they were like, you mean I still have to pay property taxes, so I don't really own this house anymore? And I was like, yes, that is exactly what it is. Don't pay your property taxes and we'll see who really owns that house as they take it away from you. And where financial institutions, you don't really own that money. That money could be hijacked from you, it could be stolen from you, it could be locked down by a court or whatever. So it's not really yours. You're holding on to it, but it's not really yours. Where cryptocurrency, the reason it's hated by regulators and by financial institutions is you own it, nobody can take it from you. It is if you decided to not give it to someone, it's impenetrable to someone hijacking it and just taking it.
But is it possible to make it so that it's completely worthless? Like if you built up so much, I guess, cryptocurrency and you had, I don't know, like a wealth, so to speak, could things change to make it so that that's actually not worth anything anymore?
And it would, and same thing, it sort of parallels with the US dollar. You can make the US dollar, the same things that happen to the US dollars can happen to cryptocurrency. It has the same market forces. It has the same supply and demand. The things that kill it, I'll give you the killers. Ready?
Okay.
Zero participation. The cryptocurrency requires that they have hundreds or thousands or even millions of people participating in creating the infrastructure. Have you ever heard this story? You want me to explain it to you?
Sure.
Okay. So the way cryptocurrency works is it has a back end where I could take this computer that's sitting next to us. I can install some software on it. And now this computer is now participating as a server in cryptocurrency market, right? Okay. So like Visa or MasterCard has a server that allows transactions to pass through. My computer now, I've given the network, the cryptocurrency of my choosing, permission to process people's transactions through my computer. I'm allowing it to participate. And that would what I'd be calling a miner, right? So it would be mine. It's not really mining. I mean, it is mining cryptocurrency, but it's participating in the network. Now I'm paid through the issuance of Bitcoin for them to use my system and the electricity and whatnot. So if you got zero participation, where the people being paid to let them use their computers, they could bow out, and now there's no like deconsolidated network to support Bitcoin transactions. But since you're paid for it, the likelihood that people are going to be like, nah, I'm not going to participate and not be paid for that. There are huge businesses that are part of that. So that's number one. You remove participation from the people who are mining those coins, the network goes away. Second thing is, if you regulate it and take the ability for people to spend it and use it, you kill it, right? So let's just say I'm in Iran. I'm just a regular dude in Iran, and I'm looking at my country like, we might get freaking nuked tomorrow. Like we might be done. Like I have this money, but I might see it rolling around in the streets and it might be worth zero. So I take the dollar in Iran and I transfer it into Bitcoin, right? Now I can run my butt to another country that's not obliterated by nuclear weapons. I go to the Bitcoin network that is accessible to pretty much everybody, and I see my Bitcoin values there. I pull it back down, turn it back into another dollar. So that's the proper utility as a transfer.
It's like
of
a
value.
universal
right?
value.
Because a country can't take my Bitcoin, but a country can take my US dollar or whatever. And that's the difference.
Will the value differ? Like, a dollar in one country is not necessarily the value of a dollar in another country.
They have rates of exchange that basically are uniform across all countries. The values sort of set by the marketplace. And that's why I say if regulators change it, they can absolutely squash it in certain countries because they can limit. Like we have two markets here, more than two now, but two major markets that will let you translate your US dollar into Bitcoin and back and forth. And it's set like the marketplace where it's buyers and sellers. So I can go take it and down to to my local currency.
So are people still doing this?
Oh yeah.
With cryptocurrency?
Yeah.
I feel like I haven't heard much about it lately. For a while, everybody I knew was talking about it and talking about getting Bitcoin, and I haven't heard much lately. And I'm did it just not work out?
The US dollar is pretty solid. Okay, so it's not better. So why would you use Bitcoin over something that's solid? You go to a country that isn't solid and they're using it like crazy because it actually is better. It's not. We're not talking like Bitcoin as an investment strategy, but more of what it was proper. The buying part, the selling point. So you probably see other countries that have oppressive rules, socialist countries, dictatorial countries. It's a way of having sort of financial freedom where you just can't get hijacked by your country.
Good to know. All right. That was a good lesson.
Yeah.
For anyone else that didn't understand it, 'cause I can't be the only one.
And that's why if I took $1 million and I wanted to send my $1 million to somewhere in Europe, okay, I'd go to a bank and they would take like 10%. It might be a little lesser than 10%, but of my $1 million, it would cost me $100,000 to send my money wired over to another bank, right? So the banks are like, we got this. We're going to make $100,000 for just the transaction. Where with Bitcoin, it doesn't care what you send. I could send $1 billion, right? And it's always the same, like $20 or $5 or $2 to send it on the other side. So
and no one can hack your Bitcoin and steal from you? Or?
It's a target so that it can't be. Well, let me describe why it's impenetrable to hacking.
Okay.
So the transactions are encrypted, right? And so it uses sort of like cryptography to be able to take transactions and solve those cryptographic transactions.
Sure. We'll
right?
go with that.
Now, my computer over here that's doing transactions and your computer over there that's doing transactions. If I came in and changed something on the database over here, I would need 51% of all of the other people who are hosting these things to agree that that's a good transaction. So it's an agreement system where if I would have to basically take over half of the Bitcoin network in order to slide transactions in there that didn't belong. So if I changed something, it wouldn't agree with your computer and mine would get thrown out as something that wasn't accurate. So now where you can be hacked, if you have your Bitcoin sitting on your computer and you do something stupid, you can get your Bitcoin hacked for sure. It takes a level of sophistication so you know what you're doing, so you don't use it on your side. The system is hack proof. The doorways to the system are totally hacker able. So you have to know how to do it.
Okay. All right. It still sounds a bit above my pay grade, but
in the future, and here's another reason why Bitcoin isn't great for the consumer. That whole thing where we're comparing the ledger from my computer to yours takes 10 minutes. Okay. And so if you're going to buy something and you lodge a transaction, whatever, it doesn't actually clear for like 10 minutes. So if we're doing business, it slows down the process where you're not going to use the ledger system in order to do it. So you have to build on another system where they're kind of banking on that it's a legit transaction and it'll eventually clear. And that's where the hacking can happen. If something that's outside the system that's working with the system, it's a little bit. I look at cryptocurrency to be sort of like a semi-truck, okay? So for like voting. Like voting in that realm would be really secure because I can't slide votes in on my little voting system because it has to agree with everything that's in the system. So it's a lot more secure. And so when you need a container for valuable things such as data, it's a perfect system for it.
So maybe the people that kind of get in that mindset of like, I don't trust banks and all these institutions, and I'm going to stick my money in a can and bury it in the front yard, just convert it to crypto or Bitcoin or.
And it works completely opposite of money. So our money is an inflationary system where more money is being created. So the money you had in your hand is worth less because it inflates upward like at least 3% per year, right?
Yeah.
Well, crypto is deflationary. There's actually less of it that gets created. So the value has to go up. Bitcoins are around, when I got started in Bitcoin, they were about $20 a piece. Okay. Now they're about 60,000 a piece. And in the end, they have to be around between $1 and $10 million a piece, right? So because, can you care to explain? I mean, this is getting really in the weeds in this topic. So the reason,
if you see me glaze over,
but I'll make it. I'll put it in a very understandable way.
Okay.
So when I'm hosting my computer, and I'm letting them use it for transaction's sake, and they're paying me. That money is coming from a system, a reward system that rewards, when I started, 25 Bitcoins per to every 10 minutes to people who were hosting these systems, right?
Okay.
Well, every couple years, that gets cut in half. So it went to 12.5, and then kept cutting the reward system in half and in half and in half and in half. Indefinitely. So they were originally giving 25 as a reward for letting them host it on your machine. Next is, in the end, you're going to get like 0.0001 Bitcoin for the same thing. It has to pay for the rental fee of the computer, the electricity that you're consuming, the timing. So the value has to go up. And that's why legitimate investment people stay as far away from Bitcoin as possible, because this is either going to be worth millions of dollars per Bitcoin or nothing. Because what's going to chase people out of it is that the value in the reward system isn't enough for me to host this system. And as soon as it's not, I'm out. But as soon as I get out, what ends up happening? The percentage that the other people who are in go up because I bailed out, and now they're making more money. So it almost is like it'll bait you back in, right?
Yeah.
As people drop out, because then you make more money.
Others are kind of hoping to outlast the others that want to drop out.
Because if you get out, you're less competition in the system, and then I get more money when you drop out. So that's why, yes, the math still has a probability that it goes to zero, right? If too many people out or there isn't a demand for the stuff, but it's very unlikely that that's happened. If it was going to happen, it would have already happened.
Okay.
So we're on the fake stuff, So can you think of any other examples where time is fake?
Where time is
fake? Time
fake?
is illusion. It's a complete construct. time doesn't
It's an
exist.
illusion and it doesn't exist.
But we believe in it. We even buy clocks, but time's really not a thing. The dramatic pause.
I know. My brain is like, I keep thinking of examples that we use time. I can't think of one where it doesn't exist or it's an illusion or.
Are governments an illusion?
Are they?
Yeah. Government's a totally an illusion.
Okay.
Well, if we started 5 people in the Youngstown studio club, right?
Yeah.
There was a Youngstown studio before there was a Youngstown studio club. It's just an apparatus and it's an illusion, whatever we create. So if we create, we're going to create some rules in our studio. Mm-hmm. Those rules are an illusion, right? We're going to collect a subscription to the club, and that too is an illusion. And it's a concocted thing. Money's a concocted thing. Governments are a concocted thing, and Youngstown Studio Club is a concocted thing.
You kind of just make it what it is based on what you can get to happen.
And you can escape it anytime you want. You just lose some of the benefits of the illusion. Sometimes the illusion's all right? But it's still an illusion. Money, an illusion. We can go back to, trading sand dollars for the things we want, even though money is a little better than it.
And time is an illusion.
Time is an illusion.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Give me an example where time is an illusion.
All right. Well, the way you think about time, and I'll give you some sort of like micro examples of time.
Okay.
So it's a construct, is we make up all of its regiments, or all of the metrics to say how what time is and how it exists, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not a unchanging thing. It's not one of those rules and laws. So for instance, if I jump in my rocket ship and go the speed of light, right? Mm-hmm. I am going through time at the same rate as I always have, right? But in comparison, everybody on Earth is aging like I'm at a crawl in comparison of two things, right? Mm-hmm. So everybody's aged 160 years and I've aged like a couple of hours. You ever see Interstellar?
No.
Okay, Interstellar is a movie. They travel real close to a black hole, which means they start going super fast and they visit this planet. They spend a couple hours and everybody on Earth is dead because they experience time proportionally different than other people. At higher speeds, time goes slower. So time is relative, and meaning time is an illusion.
So really then, all of these Olympians that won their event by a matter of time, really not. They really didn't.
No, well, I'm not saying that, but thank you. So if you...
I'd be like, time's an illusion. Give me my medal.
So if you... Let's just go back into the, the 1600s, right? Method of travel. Okay, let's go from where Texas is up to Oregon, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to take a little while, right?
Yeah.
The experience is you're going to travel 4 states, and it's going to take you 6 months. Here, let's go to Texas and Oregon in an airplane in 2 hours. Uh-huh. So relative to those two things, the time will elapse faster for one and slower for the other. You would experience different experience of time. Let's do flat Earth.
Okay.
Earth. Flat Earth?
Yeah. Do I think the Earth is flat?
Yeah.
No.
Why?
Because I've seen pictures of it.
Okay.
And people have gone around it.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm guessing you think the Earth is flat?
No.
Okay, good.
I'm saying we don't know what it is. It is visually spherical. Visually spherical. So here's one thing to think about. So there was a test, an experiment done at the time of an eclipse, right? Okay. Now, first, let me give you the answer. So I'll give you the punchline right before the
okay.
joke. So, do you think light is elastic? Like, is it malleable? Do you think it's changeable?
I never really thought about it, but I mean, I've heard things like light can bounce off of things and come back.
Do you think it can be bent?
I want to say yes, because, you've done experiments where you hold things up and the light kind of bounces off of things. And
Okay, so gravity affects light. Okay, they did an experiment where at an eclipse, they watched light bend around of a dense object, a very big gravitational pull. The light bends around gravity, right?
Okay.
So what do our eyeballs, in order to see stuff, what do we need? Light.
Yeah.
Right? So visually, everything that we see is composed of light reflecting off of things. And if light can be bent around objects, especially dense objects, then what we're seeing isn't a straight line light where it showed us what was, right?
Yeah.
But bent light that went around something. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so there...
This is going to be neat.
Why?
So many things in my head.
So what I'm saying is, like, our whole world is concocted with things that we can see, and what we can see is comprised of light, and light can be bent around gravity and dense objects, right?
And see where my brain went with that is it then filled with things we can't see?
We can see the light spectrum, and what we can see is single-digit percentage of all wavelengths that are out there, right? So what we're sort of mapping in our surroundings, there might be way more to it, but we're assembling it in a way of what we can see, and what we can see is not only skewed because of bending light, but we can't contemplate perceptions that are higher than that 1% of what really exists.
Sounds so cool and kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm so into it.
But saying it's flat would have the same problem as saying it's sphere. So it's more honest to say we don't know what it is, because we're so limited on what information we can interpret in our brains. So it would be foolish to say it was a sphere. It would be foolish to say that it was flat. It would be better to say we don't know what it is.
So would you say, I'm going to just take this and run in a whole other direction with it, because this is just what interests me. You would you say you believe then that there could be things, energy, whatever, in our universe around us all the time that we can't see?
Absolutely, 100%.
Like?
So let's talk dimensions.
Okay.
Okay, because that's the segue into what happens next. So we're with light, we're only able to concoct so many dimensions, right? And so if you wanted to take the Earth and make it flat, right, you would have to unwrap it into another dimension, because you can't unwrap it into its own dimension. It's unwrappable at that point. So you'd have to delve into another dimension to unwrap it, but you would have to apply your unwrapping of the Earth to all other things in the same universe. Okay, so mathematically, you've jumped up into a place that we can't visually map. Like, we can't contemplate it, we can't see it, we couldn't put it in a three-dimensional space and interpret it well, right?
Okay.
And so if 12 dimensions are provable, and there are these areas that we can't construct or see or play in or participate, then there's way more that we don't know and can't play in and don't understand than there are areas that we can understand.
Do you think it will ever be possible to kind of tap into those things? And
not from a analog, eyes, ears, nose perspective. I don't think but through thought and frequencies and energies, that can definitely permeate.
Have you ever seen, I've never seen the movie, I just know of the movie. I think it's called Lucy with Scarlett Johansson,
I've seen
where
that.
she uses like 100% of her brain, and so all these different things. Do you think that is kind of maybe more factual than we even think? Is that if we were able to sort of unlock different perceptions and different usages for our brains, that we could more?
I don't think so. I think the reason we don't use 100% of our brains is because different areas of the brains are used for different things.
Okay.
Processing different types of information. So it's very unlikely that you're going to have stimulus in every department that's going to allow you to use 100% of your brain. Like if you're not smelling something, the olfactory or the part of your brain that's processing that information is obviously not going to be taking speech and audio and doing something with it.
Kind of like you said, is with our eyes, we need light. Well, we only have so much to see with.
Yeah, we don't have organs to detect things that are outside of that single percentage of data and information, wavelengths, light, whatever, radiations or whatever.
So yeah, even if your brain was somehow firing more so than it normally would, your senses, your physical ability would be like, no, I can't. I don't even have the ability to take that in.
Right. But what we're doing is that we're taking things that don't make logical sense, like the infinite expansion of the universe, right? And every kid that hears that is like, bullshit, right? You can't expand into nothingness. Like, we don't understand the dimension that it is expanding into because we're trying to put it in a three-dimensional space, and it's not three-dimensional, obviously. But we get right on the curb of something that doesn't make sense, and that's where we get a little understanding that the only thing we can come to conclusion on is that we don't know, and we will never know what's beyond what we can fathom. So
maybe we'll know one day.
Maybe if you jump into a different dimension, you give up your three-dimensional body and
meat suit.
Maybe.
But
it's cool to think about because of how much we're super interested in stuff that we can't contemplate, or nor can we have the understanding. We're fascinated by that.
Yeah.
Like when you go into a black hole, what is it? And why does it have to be something? Because, we have three-dimensional. On the other side of something, there's another something. And
yeah. So that makes me think, I feel like I'm just like going way out of
that's good.
left field with these. So what, if anything, and this may even be totally unrelated, but another thing I've never understood, the Bermuda Triangle. What is it that people said that was? Is that at all people think the Bermuda Triangle was some sort of other dimension, or like what is that? Do you know?
Was it Unsolved Mysteries? I used to love the Bermuda Triangle Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah, or like people say like Amelia Earhart went into the Bermuda Triangle and that's why we never heard from her. And it's like this, I don't know, place that things just vanish and go into wherever, never to be heard from again. And I'm like, what?
And that's what makes those things so interesting, because if you drive in, fly in your plane into an area and you end up 1,000 miles where you thought you were in no time, right?
Yeah.
Either we put it in the dimensional, portal of some kind, or it's like somebody went to an area that had different, gravities or different physics, in that place. And they experience something that they don't understand. I mean, it sounds a lot like the other things that we're prodding at, is we're not meant to understand it, and it's just kind of cool to think about it. So whether or not it's, there's a bunch of rock that has magnetic properties, that it screwed up their instrumentation and they ended up not where they wanted to be because they were flying in the wrong direction, or it's mathematically impossible. But I do think it's interesting that you don't hear about those kind of things anymore with the Bermuda Triangle. It's like with instrumentation that went digital and not magnetic, all of that disappeared. So kind of maybe the lack of information are happening. Maybe there's some information.
Where's the Bermuda Triangle now?
That's right.
Let's find out.
You're questing to find out what the Bermuda Triangle is?
Where's the Bermuda Triangle? What happened? What caused anything that made a story about it?
I'll tell you, the best science happens on these curiosities, because it does not take, like, most academics stay away from this kind of stuff. Especially we talked to Dr. Kate about physics. And because there's so much we don't know, none of those people can say for sure that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we're talking about things that are beyond the reach of where, our current, knowledge can prove or disprove.
Yeah.
Right? But this is where science started, when you didn't know and you're looking up and you see all these stars and you're like, I got a theory, right? We come a long way since the beginning. So that's why novices and people who just are fascinated by it are more valuable to this exchange than the academics who are like, I'm going to be, called a kook. And I'm not going to be able to write papers because nobody's going to be able to trust my work because I'm going to be flagged as an insane person. So we can be...
Of course you're not.
We can totally be insane because we're just novices that are totally curious and fascinated by this.
That's right. We're not crazy.
Not crazy. What else do you want to talk about? Got anything else?
Sort of, but I think it's going to go down a long rabbit hole.
That's cool.
We might have to... Do you want to keep it going?
We'll try it. If it goes well, we'll keep it. If not...
Okay. So kind of up there with sounding crazy. Have you ever heard of an NDE?
NDE, never heard of it.
It's near-death experience.
Oh, okay.
I have been fascinated lately with these. I don't even know how I came upon it. A couple videos, I guess, got served to me on YouTube one time, and I just watched one like, well, what are they talking about? And now I am addicted to hearing about people's near-death experiences, which years ago, I always heard the term near-death experience and thought it was somebody almost died. You know, they narrowly escaped something that almost killed them. Their life flashed before their eyes, but they were okay. That's not what this is. This is somebody died. They actually died. They were considered dead for a length of time that typically would be like, there's no way you should have come back. You were dead that long. And they describe what they experienced while dead. And it's fascinating. Have you ever seen any of these videos?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Do you in any way, shape, or form think that these people possibly have either been to some alternate dimension, place, time, something that they are seeing and experiencing things that are true and we just don't know anything about it? Or a lot of times people will say, oh, it's your brain waves, it's brain activity coming to a halt, it's all these physical things happening. Even though the doctor was like, you had no brain activity, your heart was stopped, you know, yada, yada, yada. And some of these stories are so similar, too. There's differences, but the main themes are so similar that it's like, did they all get together or watch each other's videos and just make up stories to go along with it? Or is there something really happening here?
So I'm going to give you a conflicting response because I like both of these and they conflict a little bit.
Okay.
So the first thing is like being alive. It's not something I think like you get to 90 years and you just check out and you become nothing. Like you and what you are is going to take another form somewhere. Your energy is going to get deposited
your soul,
in
so to
something
speak.
else. Your soul,
Yeah.
Because you know this is not your vessel, it's not yours. It's just a vessel that you carry through. Mm-hmm. And what makes you just join something, whether it's here in another dimension, you go be somewhere else. This is just a temporary experience. So something happens, I don't know what it is. The second conflicting side of it is when you die. Like your brain and your body is a pharmacy. The amount of chemicals that your body would produce. Have you ever been like really injured?
Injured?
Like injured?
Like bleeding, like like I've given birth. I don't know if you'd consider that injured, but that's probably an incredibly painful, weird experience.
So I would bet that if you gashed your hand, it would hurt more than if you cut your hand off, right?
I've heard things like that.
Right. Because the body is designed to give you responses to keep you from getting injured more. I think the body's designed that when you're suffering or being tortured or you're dying, it just gives you the feel nothing chemicals, or the nerves don't even give you enough feedback because you're beyond what. You know, it's almost like I want you to not touch the hot stove, but once you're there, I want you to not feel the torture that is the worst pain beyond that, right? And
at the time, yeah. I knew a guy, he hit his arm with a chainsaw, not off, but cut himself. And he said it took noticeable, like time, several seconds to bleed or feel anything.
Right.
And then it was like, ah!
So I think when you're on death's door like that, your brain just gives you all of the numb chemicals along the way of make you, totally out of your mind. And I think when you visit, and honestly, I think even when you're not hurt, if you take some non-body pharmaceuticals, you can get to a place where you can have experiences that are outside of what you experience every day. You get to connect with those dimensions and things that you don't quite understand in a different mathematical way.
So how do you know then so is there a difference then between connecting to these other dimensions or these other very real things and like dreaming, for example? How do you know in the event of this horrific accident, you weren't unconscious and dreaming, but you were experiencing something else?
Yeah, and how do you know that every time you dream, you don't get to visit the dimensions that you can't see on this plane?
Yeah.
You really don't. And it's like I said, it's interesting, and I think we do have a connection through when we are no longer conscious when we sleep, or no longer conscious when we're dead. We extend and go out, but we come back at when we wake up.
And some of these people, and again, it's all in, do you believe they're telling the truth or not? We can't prove it, obviously, but a lot of them are saying, they floated above their body or whatever. If it was a scenario that it was like an operating table or something, they heard the conversations between medical staff, and you said to do this, and they said, but what about this? And then he said this, and he said this, and they would come back and tell the people. They're like, well, you were probably hallucinating. And he's like, I was unconscious. You said this, and then you said this. And they can tell everybody what they saw. One woman said she saw her stepdad in the hallway getting a candy bar out of the vending machine, and like it checks out that they would have never known that. How did they know that kind of thing? And again, maybe they're lying. Maybe they're telling a story. I don't know. But do you think that there is potential for that?
I think there's information in that, because I think, like we invent ghosts, right? Mm-hmm. And we give them human form, speech, like they don't have a body anymore. But still, we don't know, like if I gave you a pill and said your soul can decouple with you and do whatever it does when you're sleeping, but you can do it on command. So it leaves your body and does some stuff. We don't know the capabilities of the soul when it doesn't have sensory organs. Like it wouldn't need to hear, it wouldn't need to taste, it wouldn't need to touch or see things because it doesn't have those organs anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe it can see those fifth and sixth dimensional things that our normal bodies can't see. And the connection to information of what someone said didn't have to be heard and translated. They just knew everything. So it could very easily be that.
Yes, almost all of them have said they all believe they went to heaven and were experiencing either an angel or Jesus or God or somebody of that nature. They all say, I feel very with it, very aware, just like I am now, but I don't see a body. It's just my conscious. They'll say that somebody or a being said something, but not literally. There are no vocal cords. They just know. They said everything is like telepathic. They just know things. They'll think of a question, the answer's given to them, and that's how like the communication is. They've said that colors are beyond what we even recognize colors to be. They are just so vibrant. Feelings are more than we're used to feeling. I mean, just like the description is incredible, but so many people are saying the same things that it's like, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, and so if I gave you the ability to see the full spectrum of everything that was happening, what would the world look like? You remember we were talking about Neuralink, where I could pass an idea to you without having to translate it into words, and you having to hear it and then retranslate it back into a concept and an idea. Mm-hmm. I could send you the idea all in one step, right? Mm-hmm. What if, jujitsu like in the Matrix? I can teach you jujitsu by you plugging in for 2 seconds, and the idea of jujitsu just goes to your head, and now you know. So you have infinite access to information that is all at one time. You don't have to have time now to learn jujitsu. You can learn jujitsu in instantaneous. So when you jump out of your consciousness of your body, you just know all things all at one time.
Yeah.
So you can experience an entire lifetime, because it didn't take any time out of that, right? You just had instant access. So if you could have died for 1 second and had all of the available information all in one bit and then return to your body, you would definitely know more than other people, because you saw all information all at one bit.
And it was interesting too. A lot of them described this feeling of it almost felt like they were waking up from a dream. Just as like if you have surgery and you wake up from it, or you have a dream and you wake up from it and it seemed like this blip, but now you're back in reality. They said that feels like reality, feels like home, feels like where they've always been. They were just sent here for this blip of time, and now they're back. So many people said it felt like that.
You know what the coolest thing about this is, though?
What?
People have been contemplating this for all of the time that they've been alive. They've invented religions, they've invented cultures, they've invented relationships, all based on trying to figure out things that they don't know and understand.
Yes.
So when you're curious about what happens or what is, you can use your instinct and imagination to go say, I know what I know and I know what I don't know. But all of the philosophy from, Aristotle, Socrates, at the end of the day, didn't give you the answer because there is no answer to be gotten. So it is a perpetual, infinite mystery.
Until one day.
Until we go to the Bermuda Triangle and figure it all out.
Promise me this, Joe.
Yeah.
If God forbid something ever happens to you, God forbid, come back and tell me what happens. If you can,
what if that's
in
not
any
possible?
way.
What if coming
it's
back?
Possible.
What if it's so awesome where time doesn't exist anymore and you don't have to come back to anything? Why would you?
Well, first of all of them, every single one I watched said they did not want to come back. They were told, you've got to come back. It's not your time. There's more for you to do, yada, yada, yada. They all were like, screw that. Like, it's so much better here than there. Why would I go back there? So I don't mean like come back alive and tell me. I mean, if you're a spirit or in another dimension, find a way to reach out and I'll document it, and vice versa.
Man, if you could go to the dimension and never be able to come back, and everything you ever knew was gone, time was erased, and you're in a perpetual vacuum of nothingness.
That's your heaven, isn't it? That is your heaven.
I'll buy a ticket right now. Right now.